All right, so have you ever been on like a train trip?
And it gets totally delayed
Mm.
because of something like extreme heat. It's
Yeah.
not just the inconvenience. It
Yeah.
makes you think like,
Yeah.
wow, how does the rail industry deal with the
No, it's,
weather?
it's a way bigger challenge than I think most people realize.
Yeah,
Because you're talking about this massive network
right.
that's just exposed to the elements.
Yeah, and with climate change,
Yeah.
like throwing more curveballs at us, it feels like.
Absolutely.
The stakes have never been higher,
For sure.
which is why I'm so fascinated by this deep dive into tomorrow.io and what they're doing. They're using some really clever technology
Yeah.
to make railroads more, I guess for lack of a better word, weatherproof.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they're not just reacting to the forecast, which I feel like is how a lot of industries have traditionally thought about weather. It's like, how can we respond once we know? They're really thinking about it in terms of anticipation and preparation,
Wow.
which is huge for an industry that's so reliant on precise timing.
Totally.
So we're digging into an article that one of their AI marketers, Ruth Favela, wrote, and it was published back in July.
Okay, so before we get into like the nitty-gritty of their tech,
Yeah.
can you set the scene for us? Like,
Yeah.
how vulnerable are railroads to bad weather?
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. In the U.S. alone, there's over 140,000 miles of railway track, which, if you do the math, that's like circling the Earth, like 5.5 times.
Wow.
So every inch of that exposed to sun, rain, wind, you name it.
Okay, so a lot of room for error. And we're not even just talking about delays, right? This impacts like safety,
Right.
the economy,
Sure.
everything.
Absolutely. Even a single downed line due to a storm
Wow.
can have these massive ripple effects, through supply chains. It can cost millions of dollars, put lives at risk.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not a rosy picture,
Not great.
but that's where tomorrow.io swoops in.
With their resilience platform, right?
That's right.
Is the rundown.
Okay, so what they've done, it's really fascinating. They've basically combined weather data with artificial intelligence, but they've done it on a hyperlocal scale. So we're not just talking about predicting storms in a general area. We're talking about being able to pinpoint potential hazards, like a specific section of track that might be susceptible to heat stress.
Right.
With this crazy accuracy. Okay, come on, back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Hyperlocal forecasting. Explain that to me like I'm 5.
Okay, so imagine getting a weather forecast, not just for your city, but for your street.
Okay.
That's the level of detail we're talking about.
That's what I call a personalized weather report.
Yeah.
How does that actually work, though? Are we talking like supercomputers crunching numbers?
It's all about data. They're able to feed massive amounts of data. You're talking satellite imagery, weather station readings, even historical records. They feed all of that into an AI engine
Wow.
that uses deep learning to spot patterns and make predictions. And deep learning, if you're not familiar, it's kind of like training a computer to think like a meteorologist,
Okay.
but way faster and obviously on a much larger scale.
So instead of just like reacting to a storm after it hits,
Right.
railroads can now anticipate problems and actually do something about it.
Exactly.
Whenever they hit.
Yeah. Like, for example, let's say the system predicts that a particular stretch of track is going to reach a critical heat stress level by midday. They can then take steps to adjust train speeds, maybe reroute traffic around that area, or even schedule preventative maintenance.
Wow. So it's not just about avoiding like a disaster.
Right.
It's about making the entire system
Totally.
more efficient.
Absolutely.
So I'm guessing this also translates to some
Oh, yeah.
major cost savings for these companies.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. The cost of like emergency repairs, delayed shipments, even just the fuel that's wasted. When a train has to run at a reduced speed because of weather, those costs add up really quickly.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about saving money, we're talking about saving time. But even more importantly, we're talking about potentially saving lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to safety, I mean, this technology is huge because you think about, let's say there's a section of track that's prone to landslides during heavy rain. In the past, it was kind of, you're hoping for the best. But now with a system like this, they can predict those conditions days in advance. And they can halt traffic before it even becomes an issue.
It's incredible to think about how this is like reshaping how this entire industry operates. And we've talked about the benefits for the rail companies themselves. But I want to shift gears for a second and think about what this means for like us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, on like the most basic level, it means fewer delays, more reliable service. You're not going to be stranded for hours on end because of a surprise snowstorm. But it goes beyond that.
Yeah. How so?
Well, think about all of the goods and services that rely on rail transport.
Okay.
Everything from the food on our grocery store shelves to the materials that are used to build our homes.
Yeah.
A more weather-resilient rail network means a more resilient economy overall.
That's a really good point. It's
Yeah.
easy to get caught up in like the technical marvels of it all and forget about
Mm.
the bigger picture impact. This isn't just about trains running on time.
Right.
This is about creating a more resilient future for all of us.
Exactly.
And I love that. I also can't help but think back to something you mentioned earlier about Tomorrow.io, working with companies like Canadian National Railway and CSX. These are big names.
Yeah, they're huge players in the industry. And I think it really speaks to how seriously they're taking this technology. This isn't just them dipping their toes in the water. This is diving in head first.
It makes you wonder, if weather intelligence can revolutionize the rail industry like this, what other industries could it impact?
It's a great question. And honestly, I think it speaks to the broader potential here. We're talking about things like aviation, shipping, construction, even something like outdoor event planning.
Oh, wow.
Think about all the different ways that weather impacts those industries.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, and in a way, we're talking about moving from a position of reacting to weather events to one of anticipating and adapting to them.
Yeah. It feels like we're on the cusp of this major shift in how we understand
Totally.
and interact with the weather. Not just in the rail industry, but in like
Yeah,
countless aspects of our lives.
absolutely.
So we've almost cracked the code on predicting the unpredictable.
Totally, and the implications are huge. I mean, think about aviation.
Oh, yeah?
Being able to predict microbursts around airports or like optimize flight paths to avoid turbulence. We're talking about a whole new level of safety and efficiency.
Totally. Or even like in the construction industry.
Oh, yeah.
No more construction delays because of like an unexpected downpour.
Right, or scheduling a big outdoor concert, knowing that a thunderstorm's not going to roll in and ruin the show.
Yeah.
The possibilities really are kind of endless when you start to think about it.
It's almost like we're talking about a future where the weather is no longer this like unpredictable force,
Right.
but something that we can like anticipate and work with.
Totally. And that shift in perspective is maybe like the most significant thing that's happening here. It's not just about like building better technology, it's about building a better relationship
Yeah.
with the natural world.
Yeah, I love that. It seems like every time we do one of these deep dives, we uncover these like threads that connect technology and humanity
Mm.
and the future.
Mm.
These really fascinating ways.
That's the joy of exploration, right?
Yeah,
Always something new around the corner.
totally. So as we're like pulling into the station
Yeah.
on this deep dive into weatherproofed railroads, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that innovation can come from the most unexpected places.
Right.
Who knew that AI and hyperlocal forecasting could be like the keys to a more resilient future?
Right.
Not just for trains, but for like all of us.
It speaks to the power of technology, right? When we applied it thoughtfully, it allows us to adapt to a changing world and build a better future, one train at a time.
I see the pun. I like it. To all of our listeners out there, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of weatherproofed railroads. If you want to learn more about Tomorrow.io and all of the really groundbreaking work they're doing, be sure to check out the link to the full article in our show notes.
And until next time, keep exploring.